Limited to Limitless Transformational Coaching presents Limitless Conversations. Insights to Transformational Breakthroughs.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of
Some business ventures that she's had. And the title today is From Assassination to Advocacy, Living with Integrity Across Cultures. And welcome, Vicky. Welcome to the podcast this morning.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to, do this podcast. Thank you.
Wonderful. Why don't you start out with just giving us a little bit of your background, kind of an overview, and then we're going to dive into what happened with you because your father was a political figure and he was assassinated. So we're going to circle back around to that after you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I was born in the Philippines, and somehow at the age of 28 years, I moved to the Middle East because I got married to a Jordanian, and I lived there for about 20 plus years, trying to absorb the culture, language, and Filipina living in the Middle East was challenging. And then from the Middle East, I had some leadership roles, and I had a work at taught in the American universities, and from there moved on to the US, where I am right now in California. So that's pretty much in a nutshell my experience, and I have a lot of stories to share, Lisa. So
You do have a lot of stories to share. I think we're going to be doing at least 3 episodes with you. So I'm super excited. You have so much great insight and you're so heart-centered and warm and so interested in helping to serve others. It is just amazing. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to know you. So let's circle back and talk a little bit about your dad. If you'll give everybody a little bit of background on who your dad was and what he did, and then right up to that, how old you were when he was assassinated and how that changed your life in that moment.
while my dad served in the government, at that time he was the minister of local government under President Aquino, Cory Aquino, one of the two women presidents in the Philippines. And my dad, he is so honest. So what he did during his first few months in the government was started terminating services of corrupt officials. He would even say, "Oh, somebody asked for millions of money to build a bridge across a river. And when I investigated, there was no river." And so this happened. Unfortunately, one day he was assassinated because the next day he was going to have a press conference divulging all these corrupt officials. Of course, nobody wanted that.
Wow.
At about 8 o'clock in the night, when he was about to go to church, he was killed together with my uncle, who was the driver. At that time, I was in Qatar. And the feeling that, is he really dead? Or it might have been a wrong identity. And so
Yeah.
I couldn't believe there was still that, like in denial until I reached the Philippines, saw his coffin, and that's when I really broke down. The challenge was I wanted to tell my dad that, "Dad, I will be living your legacy. I will continue whatever you fought for because this is my responsibility now. I am your daughter and I would live by it." There were many challenges. They would say, "Oh, Vicky, why do you have to go back to the Middle East? You're no one there. You're somebody here in the Philippines." And I took the challenge because instead of taking the negative energy, I said, "No, I'll take it. I want to be somebody in the Middle East. I want to share my story. I want to share my challenges, a Filipina going to the Middle East and everybody's voices." And so I left still for the Middle East. At that time, I was already married to a Jordanian. I was about 38 years old or 40 years old at that time and decided I'm going to continue my mission in the Middle East. And I did. I became a leader after my husband passed away. I ran for the lieutenant governor for marketing in Toastmasters and then went on to the lieutenant governor for education and training. until I
So
became,
if we
well,
could
now it's
circle
called
back
district
though, if we
director.
could circle, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if we could
It's
circle
okay. It's
back,
okay.
I'd like to dig into kind of the emotions and state of mind and what happened through experiencing your father's assassination and knowing that he was assassinated because he was working to live a life with integrity and beauty and really working to be against the idea of corruption and wasting funds, wasting money, wasting time, and wasting government because he was interested in making people's lives better. And you did say that you decided it was time for you to kind of take up the shield after that happened. So I'd like you to walk us through a little bit more of that. And I know it may be a little bit emotional, and that's okay because I believe there are people who need to hear this. I believe that there are people who maybe have experienced loss in their lives and they're not sure how to take up that shield and step into that role that they valued so much.
Was really emotional. You know, Lisa, the feeling of you were still in denial from the plane. Usually, my father, because he was an official, he would be there when the door of the plane opened, and he was not. And so I said, God, this is it. The emotion of being proud of my dad and at the same time losing him because I was in the Middle East all that time. I wasn't, with my father, and so it was so difficult to process it and to think that why did I lose my father at this time when he was doing great for the country. And so people were telling me, the usual, oh, your voice will pass away anyway. So it was a turn of your dad. He's kind of old. I mean, you don't want to hear these things. And it
Right.
really bothered me. It bothered me, when you're telling people that, oh, don't worry, each of us will take a turn. But that's not the right way to say it. And it made me it made me feel more challenged because I said, Dad, I know you died for the country. You died for us. Because, Lisa, I would remember he would say, I don't want to feed my children with stolen money. People would come to him to bribe him with cases of money. He would throw it back to them. He would say, I don't need your money. I am honest and I'm going to die honest. And he died with honesty because he died. They wanted to keep him quiet because of the press conference next day. So
Right.
the
Right.
president used to send him security guards, bodyguards, and he would send them home. He would say, if it's God's will, the roof over my head can fall on me and I can die. So it's God's will. I don't need those bodyguards because I know I'm living a good life. So these are the things that I keep thinking about how my dad was and how we could live his life, Lisa.
Did he feel it was a waste of resources? What was his feeling in not accepting a guard? I mean, because we could look at God's will in two ways. God was maybe offering him. I've heard the story, an analogy before of imagine you're a person who knows a flood is coming. And so you go out to the riverbanks and stand on a rock and ask for God to save you because you know this flood is coming. And pretty soon, a person in a boat comes by and they say, jump in the boat, we'll save you. And you say, no, I'm waiting for a sign from God to save me. And then pretty soon somebody with a truck up on the hill says, climb up the hill, we'll save you. And you say, no, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then a helicopter comes by and you wave it off and say, no, no, I'm waiting for a sign from God to save me. And pretty soon, all of the resources that God has sent you to save you are gone. And have you ever, in some of the dealing with the challenges, have you ever wondered why your dad was maybe turning away the resources that may have been offered to him through a higher power and he just wasn't recognizing it?
My dad was from the old generation, and he believed that because of his integrity and honesty, he thought that nobody would really harm him.
Mm,
See, and so having no security guard, and he has also he loved his private life, so he really didn't want security guard all over at our home and just being with us. So I
right.
believe that he said, in the best of his health, he took care of himself. But of course, it's unbelievable how things could change in one
Yeah.
second. And
The
that's
blink of
the
an eye, right? It's the blink of
tragedy.
an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, blink of the an eye.
So I really admire your commitment to his example of integrity, but I'd like you to explore for us maybe one or two challenges that you had in stepping into that role and what the breakthrough might have been for you to really embrace it.
Challenges were always there, Lisa, from the time I started my life because we were always protected and I didn't have a normal life. So when my dad passed away, there were more challenges because living in the Middle East, there was sort of, well, maybe at that time, but maybe now it's not so common. But at that time, they always thought that an Asian Filipino was a household helper. So I came to the Middle East, and people thought, "Oh, are you a household helper, or you clean houses?" This was a challenge. And one of those days, my husband told me, "There's this party with all women of prominence, and why don't you attend the party?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" I was the only Filipino, all Arab women. So the thing was, so they were, talking about them. I am the daughter of the president of the bank. Each one had to introduce themselves. Finally, my turn came, and I saw a Filipina household helper in that house. So I called her. I said, "Would you like to come over?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am." So I spoke to her in my language. I said, "Would you explain to them, I'm the daughter of Jaime Ferrer. Would you explain to them who my dad was or who my dad is?" And she said, "Oh my God." So she talked to the women there. She said, her father is the minister of local government at that time, and he was supposed to run for vice president in the Philippines. And they all like, okay. I said, thank you, to my dad, because he lived a good life and people recognized him. And so I said, giving up.
Yeah.
I'm taking this challenge. And again, the second challenge is you will never survive in the Middle East as a Filipina. They have this thing. Well, I'm happy to say I didn't give up because I believe that if you respect yourself and you have the confidence to know that you can share to the community and contribute to the community, it will happen. Good things will happen for you.
So, one thing I noticed about that story is that everybody identified themselves by their lineage and their parentage instead of by their own person. And I know that's a cultural thing. However, could you work through that for us? Some of the cultural challenges of being a Filipino woman in Jordan, married to a Jordanian man, obviously, that you had some stature right in the community. You had some place in the community as opposed to coming in and having to work your way up from the bottom to the top. But you still, like you said, people still looked at you as if you were a housemaid, or they looked at you only as potentially valuing you for either who you were married to or who you came from. Is that fair to say?
Yes. That is very true because at that time people assume, they see a Filipino and they assume, and that's when I lived in Qatar, and that's when, for 20 years, I noticed the transformation of how people were starting to recognize the Asians. People were starting to recognize how we Filipinos work hard and we are really loyal and we do our best for anything. And so that happened, and we were all given the opportunities, Filipinos, to prove ourselves. And this is the reason also where my dad and I, before I got married, well, we had a recruitment agency where we sent Filipinos to the Middle East. And that was the reason, again, why people started accepting that, hey, these Filipinos, they're good people. They work hard, and let's give them a chance to prove themselves. So I was proud, and I'm always proud to be born in the Philippines and be my dad's daughter. It's something that's really holds a special place in my heart.
That's amazing, and what a gift, and what what a grace in your
what
life, right?
grace in your life, right?
Yes.
What would you say were the
What
biggest
would you
cultural
say were the
challenges
biggest?
that you faced as a Filipina in the Middle East?
There were a lot because first of all, the language barrier, because especially, when we used to socialize with my husband in Qatar, they would really just speak in Arabic. I mean, I was the only person who didn't speak in Arabic. So why would they speak in English for me? So it was difficult because they would crack jokes. And of course, I would just like stare at all of them. Why are they laughing? Then I would ask my husband, can you please translate the joke for me? And he will be laughing and start translating. And then I say, it's not funny. It's not funny when from the Arabic to English and they translate the joke. So and then he would say, would you please laugh? Because it's not polite if you don't laugh. I said, no, I won't. The second barrier was again, it's the language where when I used to be in an elevator and people will be talking about me in Arabic and they would say, oh, she's Japanese. No, 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 she's Korean. No, no, she's too thin. Or and then I would just let them talk until the elevator door opens and I would say, hey, by the way, thank you for talking about me. I speak Arabic. I speak to them in Arabic. And I think the next time it's better not to talk behind the women because who knows? Maybe they understand your language. And so they would really be in shock. I learned the language mainly because I wanted to understand what the conversation sometimes I was sad that I understood the conversation because it wasn't really pleasant.
Oh,
Arabic food, Lisa, just to know the culture. Yes, I had to
yeah.
learn the best words to say when there is a special occasion. Imbibe in me because I was married to an Arab. And that is the reason probably why I survived and I was accepted because I accepted their culture. I appreciated their culture. So someone was asking me, I spoke to a class in Northwestern University the other day, and they said that, how talk to clients who are from another culture. And I would always say, try to learn some special words. Secondly, appreciate their culture. And thirdly, just accept it because you cannot be them and they cannot be you. So just have this kind of a relationship where yes, we can work together even if we belong to different nationalities, different culture, different religion. It's a matter of just believing that we have one goal. We're here to share to each other. We have one community. So why not? And this is how
Right.
I felt when I lived in the Middle East. It was just acceptance and appreciation. It worked. It really worked. And they're
I
still my friends until today.
I believe that, sometimes people talk about assimilation and it's not necessarily that we have to assimilate. It's more like you said, understanding, maybe appreciating, and even potentially offering some gratitude so that coexistence, commingling, and maybe integration is better than assimilation. And because there are beautiful things in every culture. And you and I were discussing a little bit how multinational companies sometimes overlook some of the important cultural differences because it's not just about business. It is about life. It is about the way people live their life. It is about how people view integrity because integrity can mean different things to different people. Integrity can mean something to me. I have my own rules of what I believe integrity is, and you might have your own rules also coupled with what your father taught you about integrity. And while we may have alignment, we may also have a little bit of diversity in our belief about integrity because it all comes back to our lived experiences. So would you say, and I remember that you did say you loved coming to America, and I believe that some of your words were because you could say what you wanted and wear what you wanted and do what you wanted without having to worry about the implications from the outside or the rules that you had to live under in a different culture. So what would you say going from the Philippines as a woman to the Middle East as a woman, were the biggest cultural challenges that you faced? And you might have been a little bit more well-rounded because of your father's position in the world or because of your prior dealings with sending Filipinos and Filipinas to the Middle East for work. But once you got there, because sometimes understanding it from the outside is very different than when you step into it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Because as again, I had a different position. I was lucky to be in that position, to be able to understand really how to deal deal with the situation. I graduated from behavioral science, major in psychology, and it was a good foundation for me. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to talk to people, no matter what nationality, no matter what culture, especially I talk a lot to women. We're still women. We have feelings. We have challenges with relationships. We have challenges with children, with the environment. And we do talk a lot, especially in the Middle East, especially when I started learning the language. It was really strange. Sometimes I'll be in the hospital sitting near the reception area and somebody would just sit beside me and all of a sudden we get to talking and she starts telling me her challenges or her concerns. Well, I'm not a therapist, I tell her, but I just listen to her and then I give some examples of what happened to me. 6 months later she'd give me a call and say, Vicky, you were right. I really appreciate your suggestion because I did it myself and it worked. So sometimes we don't know our mission in life, Lisa. I was sent from the Philippines to the Middle East, and I believe that I did transform lives over there. And now I'm here in the UN. So everything in life is a challenge. You take it as an opportunity. I put it that way, Lisa.
Absolutely. So, how do you believe that Toastmasters became your bridge to greater acceptance, or maybe it was your bridge to your own personal breakthrough and your own personal ownership while you were in the Middle East?
It was strange happening when I was in Jordan. I met a friend who wanted to establish a Toastmasters club over there. And she said, Vicky, because you're good at public speaking, let's organize a Toastmasters club. So I was able to, with my friend, we were able to organize an all women's Toastmasters club in Jordan, having the wives of ministers, wives of ambassadors, and it was great. It was, for me, a place where I could find myself in Toastmasters. And that was in 1999. And I'm still a member until today. Transformed me to find my voice. Because at that time, yeah.
Before we go too far, would you explain to our listeners who may not know what
Mm-hmm,
Toastmasters is? Because you and I are coming from a place of we both have been Toastmasters in our lives.
mm-hmm.
And so there may be people listening who have never heard of Toastmasters and have no idea what the Toastmasters groups are.
Yeah, Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization and it helps people in their communication and leadership journey. And for me, it was really powerful. It changed my life, especially with my family. I have third culture kids, half Filipino, half Jordanian. I learned how to communicate with them. I learned how to communicate with my husband. I learned how to communicate with my community in a positive way because sometimes we forget that, we communicate probably in a condescending way without any bad intention. And this way, I'm sure, Lisa, you can resonate with me that Toastmasters helps us to communicate effectively. And so when I entered the Toastmasters, I was one of the founders of the All Women's Toastmasters Club, I realized that my God, this is my world because I love to meet people. And then we moved to Qatar. Again, I started, learning more about effective communication, Lisa. And aside from learning communication leadership, you get to meet different people from different nationalities and culture because in Qatar it's a mixture of nationalities. I learned to work on my cultural intelligence. Again, accepting and appreciating each culture. I learned to love Indian food, for example. I learned to cook some dishes that were from different cultures. Why not? Because everything is a learning experience. Having this learning experience, you share it with others. I pass on the recipes that I've learned to others because that's the way of helping each other and just supporting each other in the community.
Absolutely. If you were, and I know breakthroughs don't always happen in one big, like, aha moment. Sometimes breakthroughs are, they trickle in, right? You get little bits of change that start happening. And then all of a sudden you look back 15 years ago and you're like, oh my gosh, I completely broke through in multiple different ways. And but if you were to think about it, how or when would you say in Toastmasters, because you did have breakthroughs in Toastmasters, but if you could think back, is there a specific time that you just all of a sudden had that transformation from the minister's daughter and the Jordanian's wife to Vicky, and then Vicky stepping into the district director of 7 different countries for Toastmasters? Because there, even though you came from a position of being trained in leadership, that doesn't always mean that you have that full voice and that full ownership. And I think that I know that Toastmasters can certainly help people find that, but also your life experiences really help you find that. So, can you think of either multiple small breakthroughs or maybe even a major breakthrough where just one day you woke up and you were like, this is it. And I'm taking a right hand turn right now and moving forward that way instead of continuing to drift the way that I've been drifting?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm grateful to Toastmasters, Lisa. I was the first female Filipina who became the district director of 7 countries: Oman, Jordan, Lebanon, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and of course, Qatar. Yeah. So 7 countries and Jordan. So it was a breakthrough because I said, wow, from people, negative energy, you can't make it, Vicky. This is not for you. Go back to the Philippines. You'll never be somebody there. And I proved it to myself. I don't need to prove it to other people. I just proved it to myself, Vicky. You can make it. And if you can make it, others can make it too. And this is why I started training, coaching women and men about their ability to believe in themselves in terms of communication and leadership, because anything is possible, right, Lisa? And you call your company the Limitless because belief in yourself is limitless and you can achieve anything limitless because you are determined to do so. Another breakthrough was I became the region advisor for the whole of the Middle East, for Europe, for the UK and Ireland, and South and West Africa. I had the chance to travel to different places and do my training again in communication leadership. This was another era for me that proved that I have my voice. And the leaders that I was training was something that I also learned from them. It's not just me giving them, conducting training. It's both ways. We learn from each other. And I emerged as the Vicky who had a voice, who can talk for herself. Because, in the Philippines, we were taught, oh, just be humble, be polite, don't say yes when even if you don't feel like saying yes. No. Today, I'm proud of myself because I say what's in my mind. No, as long as I know I'm right, say it. Why not? And people appreciate it instead of you pretending to be what you're not or pretending to say something that you don't mean. It's at
Right.
this time I feel that yeah, we should be proud of ourselves when we have our own voice, Lisa's voice, Vicky's voice, and let's just stand by it.
People do appreciate authenticity. They appreciate integrity. Sometimes they maybe don't want to hear things, but usually in the long run or when they reflect back, they know that those things that you were discussing and being honest about in a way were beneficial to them. whether they realize it in the moment or it takes them years to understand it. And sometimes they may not even understand where it came from. And, that's the funny thing about having breakthroughs is that we don't always understand where our breakthrough comes from because sometimes it happens in those little pieces. It happens in those moments of integrity. It happens in those moments of envisioning what's possible or what could be possible and then having the courage or it doesn't even have to be courage. It could just be the wherewithal or the moment to decide to move even a centimeter forward into it, to start testing the waters. As long as we are continuing to stretch ourselves and to grow, it doesn't have to be a big step. You don't have to stick your chest out and march into it and say, I'm so brave because I'm doing this thing I'm afraid of. You might just even get on your hands and knees and crawl an inch and be like, yay, I did it. I have a terrible fear of heights. And in Colorado, there's this place, it's the beginning of the Grand Canyon, and it's called the Royal Gorge. And it has this great swinging bridge over it. And I've been there 3, maybe 4 times in my life. And the last time I went with friends, I was like, I am going to walk across this bridge. It's big enough to have cars drive both directions over it. But part of the problem with that is it moves. And it also moves in the wind. So I was like, I'm going to walk in the middle and I'm going to walk across this bridge. Well, I walked about probably 10 or 15 feet and then I had to get down and crawl and then I got stuck. I admit I got stuck. My friends were laughing at me, but I was like, this is the furthest I've ever made it. So I still felt like a
Whoa.
champion. I was terrified, right? I didn't feel like I was courageous because I felt if I'd have been courageous, I'd have just pushed through and gone all the way across. But when that bridge started moving and there, the drop is incredible. And I guess it's kind of like vertigo, right? I just get dizzy and kind of lose all
Yeah.
sense of what's up and what's down. And so that's the reason I had to get on my hands and knees and start crawling. Then I got into a car. A nice car stopped and said, "We'll take you the rest of the way." So I still made it across. But the thing is that I had that fortitude in the moment to just say, I am terrified and I'm just going to push myself as far as I possibly can to experience this level of discomfort and know that I can be incredibly uncomfortable and still survive. So, did you find that in the Middle East when you went from the Philippines to the Middle East? Did you find those moments where you had to kind of lay yourself bare and be uncomfortable and be not where you wanted to be, but you knew it was something that was going to make you a better person on the backside of it?
Yeah, Lisa. First of all, I love your story because you did it with persistence and you didn't mind. There's always fear. When you want to do something that's not familiar to you, something for the first time, there will always be fear, but you turn fear into energy. And that's how it is in public speaking. You're afraid. They say that people would prefer to die than speak in public. But you have to, again, take care of that. I did that also in the Middle East because nobody knew who I was. And sometimes I tell myself, oh my God, what
Right.
did I put myself into? Because in the Philippines, I was known. Our license plate number was number 6, things like that. And then you come into the Middle East, you're no one. But then I said, I'll take up the challenge. I'm no one. I don't have to be somebody, but I know that I can be able to contribute to the community in my way. And so I persisted. I didn't give up. Because again, people saying, go back to the Philippines. You have a better life there. I didn't. And as you said, it took small steps. I took small steps. Building relationships, Lisa, as we know, building relationships, letting them respect me, letting them trust me. Who is this Vicky? How can she help us? How can she support us? And at the end of the day, as we are, exposed to, when people know that you are there to support them and to help them, and they realize that Vicky doesn't need money from me. Vicky doesn't need anything material from me. She's just there to help and support. So that became my mantra, that just help and support community and see where it goes. And I believe that it worked. I would say that it will always work. And even here in the US, when now that I'm building relationships and just trusting people and making them trust me, it will always work because you listen to people. And that's what I did in the Middle East, started listening to them, helping them in any way I could. I feel good about it. I'm thankful that I had that
How do you feel
opportunity
that?
to
So I think
live
as
in the Middle
women,
East and learn.
yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about it more because I want details before I go there. I want details about what to expect and how to integrate better so that I'm not sticking out like a sore thumb. My husband and I, we love to travel, but we hate to we hate to take the tourist trips. We want to go experience the
Mhm.
real, what real life looks like. We want to experience real culture, not what people expect to see. For instance, in Jamaica, one year, we paid the bus drivers who were taking people to the tourist spots to take us to the bus depot, and we played dominoes in a shipping container at the bus depot with all of the tour bus drivers. And then they took us and we picked everybody up from the tourist spot, and they took everybody to the tourist cafe, and then they took us to the cafe that they and their families eat at. And so we love to have those kind of real experiences instead of the tourist trap experiences, if that makes sense. But what I was going to ask you
Yeah.
is, as you were making this journey of starting to be so altruistic with your heart and your mind and your mission, some women, we battle between always being so giving and so supportive that we lose ourselves. So how did you find yourself as you were being so generous and so giving and so supportive of everybody and not end up as, for lack of a better term, as the doormat that everybody just came to and used up?
That's a real great question, Lisa, because sometimes it happens to people when they lose themselves. There's so much they can't say no because they have to, always give in to what people want them to do. But I didn't do that because I always believed in balance. When I was working in Qatar, I used to teach, and then I would still make sure I took care of the home. I took care of the children. I am going to school and all this. I always had to make sure that am I doing the right thing at home, and am I doing the right thing outside? Because every time I would conduct training, I would tell the Toastmasters and the people who were my mentees, or yeah, that I would say, please don't forget your home, because your home is something that you feel attached to. This is your family, your wife, your children. Don't forget them when you're so engrossed with work and with other activities, your own activities. There always has to be balance between life and work. And they appreciated it because at the end of the day, yeah, Lisa, we tend to forget, oh, I'm so famous now. And I live on being famous, and who cares about my family? They will understand
Right.
how happy I am. They'll be happy for me. It's not that case. Because always give also priority to your family. At the end of the day, your work might go, the other communities might go, but your wife and children and your family will always be there to support you. So yeah, it was a challenge because I had to make sure that it's still me, Vicky, Vicky the wife, Vicky the mother, Vicky whatever. And at the end, the another part is that Vicky the trainer, Vicky the leader, Vicky the speaker. We always, life is complicated, but we have to take it again as an opportunity to prove yourself.
How do you believe, though, that you were able to find that path from being labeled as Vicky the to just recognizing yourself as Vicky? Vicky, who is valuable not because of what role she's playing, Vicky, who is valuable not because of what leadership she's doing and how she's supporting everybody else, but how did you make that break into I'm Vicky, and Vicky is valuable, Vicky is worthy, and Vicky is worth being loved and worth loving? How did you, or where did you finally make that transition? And maybe it came from your dad and your family early on, But I understand that being in the Middle East and just being a woman in the Middle East, let's not even worry about whether we're Filipina or any other nationality. Just being a woman in the Middle East can be challenging because there are guidelines for behavior and acceptable types of conversations that you're allowed to initiate. Is that correct?
Yes, at that time, at the early times, Lisa, but now they have really transformed. As I told you, like in Qatar, we have 4 American universities. And, the locals, they became more open-minded. And I taught a lot of them, the students from the first year to the fourth year. And it was amazing, the transformation of the people. And slowly and surely, the locals started accepting different cultures, and Vicky, being the person who believed in herself no matter what, it became a person who was more confident, and I was happy that I reached that stage where people would come to me after and say, Vicky, we didn't realize that you could. Congratulations. We were really happy for you. Although we were kind of negative, we were kind of, we doubtful about it, but it did happen because you believed in yourself. So yeah, it's the transformation of the Middle East. I was at that time when it was slowly transforming and slowly progressing, and it was something that I'm lucky because everything changed for the better. I was proud to have lived in the Middle East. In fact, I'm thankful because I had that opportunity to develop myself and to develop others as well. Yeah, it's a great experience being in the Middle East, Lisa. Have you visited the
Amazing.
Middle East?
No, not yet. It's on our bucket list. But how are you then currently using your message, and in the United States, how are you using this message to help other women realize their value outside of wife or mother or teacher or doctor or whatever it is role that they assign to themselves when they describe themselves?
Yeah, I love that question, Lisa, because we can never just be Vicky, the mother, Vicky, the wife. We have multiple roles. We women were very flexible. We're resilient. We can do many things. I believe that we should just be getting out of our comfort zone and feel uncomfortable in another zone. And that's when I felt that I be in my comfort zone. I want to step out of my comfort zone. I want to try to be uncomfortable because that's when you accept challenges, and that's when you experience different things in life. And why not? I believe, Lisa, life is too short. Make the most out of every minute. When my husband passed away, he was always just work, work, work. And then a few years after, my youngest son passed away at 32 years old. He was run over
No,
by a car, and I dearly missed my youngest
sorry.
son because he was my best friend. And so I said, each minute matters. And so I want to spend each minute as productive as possible. Lisa, now I would, if I see somebody doing something good, I would go to him. I remember at Walmart, there was this cashier who was helping a lady who was handicapped. And he took time to really help her with her credit card and teach her and all. And then at the end, he said, ma'am, please don't give out your PIN code. And after that, the lady left. I went to him and I said, thank you for doing that. For what? I said, for being helpful to the lady because they need to have a pat on the back. When you see
Right.
people doing good things, just compliment them because you never know. Maybe they're never complimented. Nobody gives good words to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be money when you want to be charitable. It can be good words, and those good words would always stay in his heart and mind because Vicky said this, Lisa said this. It would help me be a better person in my life.
Well, and You never know how or when those words of encouragement or appreciation or gratitude might completely change a person's life. I can't tell you the number of stories I have heard of a moment in a person's life where somebody showed them some kind of appreciation or gratitude, and they were going down a very dark path and maybe even considering ending their lives. And that one moment, that those few seconds changed what they were going to do that day. And by changing what they were going to do that day, it made it so that they're still with us today. And, it doesn't have to be as drastic as being
Yes.
suicidal. It can be as little as showing somebody appreciation. You might have shown that young man appreciation in that way, and you might have started him thinking about, maybe I could be a counselor or a social worker for people with special needs. I love helping people with special needs, which is probably why he didn't recognize that he was doing anything extraordinary, because it was just part of his makeup. But you showing appreciation there may have changed that young man's life from feeling like he had to be a cashier forever to new possibilities of what he could do with his life and how he could change other people's lives. And so
That's
those
so
those gifts
true.
are amazing, and those gifts are things that we never ever want to take for granted. I think this has
Yes.
been such an amazing conversation. I'm so appreciative of you. And before we go today, what I would like you to do, if you don't mind, is tell everybody a little bit about what you do in life and how they could get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out and collaborate or ask you questions or maybe just get some support.
Yes, thank you, Lisa, for giving me this opportunity. I would love to, talk about. There are two things, there are two missions in my life. One is I'm a financial service planner. And so people probably don't know my husband passed away 15 years back with no life insurance and having five children. And so I said, one of my mission is to do financial services because I want to encourage people to plan for themselves today and not for tomorrow. And so, yeah, and my other passion is coaching. I've been coaching since 2003. I'm a public speaking communication coach, Lisa, in the Middle East, helping women and men transform themselves and look for their voices inside to be able to communicate what is their message to the world, their ups and downs, so that people can learn from them. And they can contact me. I have my email address. I would prefer to leave it with you, Lisa. My contact details, if that's fine. Victoria Ferrer 790 at gmail.com. You can contact me there and we can get connected. You're more than welcome. Even if you're just going to ask me question or some clarification, I would love to connect with any of you. You're always more than welcome. Again, Lisa, thank you for this beautiful opportunity. Please continue doing what you're doing, serving others, because it's such a big help. In the world today, we're all living in uncertainty. We're all living in what's next. We don't know what's next, but you're here to inspire and encourage people to live their lives in a limitless way so that they could be able to contribute to society. And of course, make their lives better.
Thank you so much, Vicky. It's been such an honor to be here with you today. I am so grateful for you, and I hope everybody got a lot out of this. And keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, because we're going to have Vicky back at least two more times for some more amazing stories that she has and some breakthroughs that she can share with you. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Okay.